Your tax savings is going to give you all of your down payment back. The rest is just profit coming in. It's like you're investing in real estate for free. He was a limited partner, so there was zero risk. And he really this was one of our more risk-averse clients.
All right, welcome to the show. I always love nerding out with experts in the world of money and finance.
All right, so I'm excited to talk about this topic here because this is something I'm highly experienced in. It has nothing to do with taxes, but I probably have about as much experience in this as taxes, and this is a conversation that you could share with anyone you know, is applicable to anyone you'll ever meet. And our topic of conversation today is how to deal with failure. And I have dealt with a lot of failure. I have really been kicked in the nuts by failure many times over. And this is something I'm very passionate, enthusiastic about our abilities to be resilient and overcome failure. In fact, when I interview people, one thing I ask is, tell me about a failure, to see how people can handle adversity and challenge and overcome things when they fall flat on their face and things don't go as well as they had thought. That's the stuff that really brings out the best in you when you have the right attitude and really shapes you. And so we're gonna have some fun today, and I want you guys, if you're going through some failure, hopefully you'll appreciate this. And also, for some of you, maybe you can revisit this conversation next time you're feeling in the dumps today. But I'm taking a little notes here. I had a quick thought, but I want you to, let's go through some things we can think about here, and I'll share some good stories about this. First thing I want you to think about here is, what is no? So a lot of you folks experience this failure, but you don't realize that when let's say you got rejected from a job offer or a pitch or whatever proposal you made. Let's talk about this rejection thing. A no doesn't always mean never. It might mean not right now. It may be it's not the right fit right at this moment. I mean, read those rejection letters, and you'll often find the language shows that they went in a different direction. Maybe you were good enough, and maybe they just found someone who was overqualified, or maybe they rejected you because they're idiots. Maybe they hired someone else because they were attracted to them, or that was the boss's daughter. So, and maybe this no is just because that no is just not the proper timing, but maybe they'll turn around and recruit you in the future. Now, I've dealt with lots of rejection because I was an untraditional accounting student. I used to be a high school teacher. In fact, in my past life, I say in my past life because I was in such a different reality. I used to be a social studies teacher for New York City. And I left, I got tired of being part of that system, and I went down south from New York City to go to school, get my master's in accounting. And everybody was so confused about why I would switch from teaching social studies to being a CPA. And so a lot of people just didn't see me fitting the mold. I got rejected from my first 15 job offers, maybe 17. It was at least 15. And they would always say no. It wasn't, but you know, the way I saw it though, because I've been through some things, and like I said, I'm highly experienced with failures. I had many failures before and after my teaching career and before the accounting. When I saw those no's, I always realized that that didn't really mean that I wasn't good enough and that everybody else was smarter. It just meant that they weren't ready to sign me on at that time. A lot of the people that rejected me came back and tried to hire me in the future once they had a little bit of experience. And you know what, here's a really great story. So there was a Big Four accounting firm. I applied, interviewed, and got rejected 3 times by the same firm. Fast forward about 10 years. And the firm's up and running. We have all this content. We're doing these amazing things. And partners, a group of 15 partners ran by one of their leaders, found us and approached me and asked if I was willing to give my time to share some tax planning with them and potentially be the advisor for all these partners. And I said, wow, isn't this interesting how the tables have turned? But I didn't feel, and looking back, I didn't really feel that great about just the energy and the way they wanted to construct the arrangements of how I could serve them. And I was like, well, you didn't want me now, and now you want me to do things under your rules, even though I'm not your employee. I don't need you. This doesn't look like a good fit. So I actually backed out and turned away the opportunity to present with them. Essentially, they wanted 2 days of free consultation on a weekend. I decided I was going to go to Savage Race and do this obstacle course. It wasn't really aligned with our vision. So really staying true to myself. So it's really funny how those rejections can be misinterpreted. Don't get too down on yourself. It's not like you're not good enough. It's just not the right timing at this moment. So another thing I want you to think about here is things don't really matter as much as you think. So let's say you didn't get that 7-figure mark in your business, or you have some sort of status. I think this is really applicable for you W-2 folks. Let's say you were overdue for a promotion or you got fired. At the end of the day, this stuff doesn't really matter as much as you think. When you're on your deathbed, whether or not you reached manager level status doesn't freaking matter. You're still gonna turn into a pile of dust. So don't over obsess about these failures. Look back 50 years from, imagine yourself 50 years from now, if you'll live another 50 years, and think about how much this thing really matters for you in the grand scheme of things. And you'll often find it probably doesn't. So just remember, have some perspective, take a look back, think into the future. Does this really matter? Let's take some of our emotion out of this thing, right? And I also want you to remember, we all die. So whether or not you get that promotion, or whether or not you close on that transaction, or let's say your business, goes bankrupt, you're gonna die regardless. So, at the grand scheme of things, you're only alive for a very short period of time on this earth. You've been dead for millions of years before you were born. You live a little bit, and then you die for the rest of the time. You're just a dead guy people eventually forget. So this failure in the grand scheme of things, whether you got rejected, or you lost a key staff, or you operated at a loss, whatever it is, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much. Well, that kind of leads me to my next point here is remember to have a sense of humor about this stuff. Because at the end of the day, it's just work, it's just your business. There's so much more to your life. There's your health, there's your family, and you gotta enjoy the ride, even the crappy parts. So find some sort of sense of humor in this. And I'll tell you, I definitely have found that having a good sense of humor through hard, tough times has been such a great tool and instrument and a survival mechanism for when things really sucked. You can always find humor and enjoyment in things, even if they are not on the surface very enjoyable at all. For instance, let me tell you something. I got fired from my first accounting job. Imagine moving down. First, I moved from New York to North Carolina and then moved all the way to Atlanta for my first job. And I got fired in less than a year. And I busted my butt to get that job and went under all this debt. Did I cry? Did I piss and moan? Absolutely not. In fact, I took the first job I could get just to get outside of the house. Well, really after I passed the CPA. And what was that job? Well, no one would really hire me for anything because I had already locked in a new position. So I needed to make money. So my first job was promoting an Italian coffee shop in the busiest street in downtown Atlanta, dressed as a gondolier with the guys who roll the gondolas in Italy with the striped shirts and the red sash around the waist and the top hat. I was in a cardboard cutout of a gondola with a background promoting Italian coffee. And you can imagine how silly of a job this is. Here's a guy with a master's of accounting CPA for $9 an hour and a free sandwich rowing this silly gondola and talking to strangers in the street. And I'll tell you what, first off, it was nice to actually finally get some appreciation. These guys actually didn't want to fire me, which was nice. But also, It was fun to just be silly and to shout to the crowds, "Who wants a gelato?" And just having so much fun with these people and bringing joy and laughter to everyone and laughing at my situation. And just, anything could be funny if you give it a chance. And when you see the humor, it doesn't, it's kind of like when you laugh at a bully or someone's trying to be angry, you laugh, you're taking out the power and the energy that the failure is taking out from you. Find a way to laugh off your failures and just make a joke out of it. You're really just gonna take all the wind, all of that energy the failure is taking out of you. If you could just laugh at it, you're just gonna diminish the power that it's had over you. And I was laughing at how silly and ridiculous my life was, and the laughter and the humor of it all made it somewhat enjoyable, even though I was flat broke and just got fired and racked up from an accounting career that I racked up tons of debt for to begin. And, it was fun. It was funny. The only thing I would say here is it got really embarrassing is when I was doing that whole shtick, and the only person that I didn't want to see started walking by, which was a former coworker from the job I got fired at. He was like, what happened to this guy? Like, what kind of drug addiction is this guy overcoming? Like, things must have really gone downhill since he got fired. I said, no, really, honestly, I have another job lined up, trust me. So it was a little bit embarrassing, but that makes the story even funnier now, and I'm grateful and proud of that experience, and it's also a really good story. So I think my camera guy might be laughing in the background a little bit here. So I really want you to think about, when things get really crappy, is where is the humor in this? You're also going to find, you're almost always going to find there's humor in everything. There's humor in failing. There's something is got to, think about, once you start thinking about, once your pragmatic business hustler side kicks in, don't neglect the humor side of you. Think to yourself, what's funny about this? Remember that, this is life. You don't take it too seriously and find the humor in these situations, and it'll really help you out, not only in just enjoying the general experience, but it frees you up and relaxes you and gives you the ability to be more resourceful, healthier, and successful. All those good things that we want. And that kind of leads me to another point here is just develop, I really want you guys, if going through failure, to really master the art of having what I call the shit-eating grin. Find a way to just laugh your way through these hard times. If you gotta go through something that's undesirable, find a way to grin and laugh and just make fun of it. Find the fun in the suffering. Really change. Really change your relationship with pain here. Be grateful for the pain and the hardness and the frustration. And really take this thing that's dragging you down and holding you back, and your business is in the dumps and things aren't working, your employees aren't showing up on time, this guy stole from you. All these things, first of all, they can all be funny with the right attitude, but really, I want you to think about when all this stuff is going wrong in your business and things are really going under and you're up against the wall and nothing's working out the way it should. Be grateful for these experiences and what they can teach you. Shift your focus, and instead of feeling bad for yourself, instead of ruminating on, oh, why me? If you ever catch yourself, you first slap yourself in the face. Never have that victimized mentality, even if you were at the wrong place at the wrong time. It's all about the way you frame this and tell yourself, use this as a gift. Whatever hardship you're going to, use it as a gift to make you stronger and more resourceful. And that's going to really have a benefit on your own mental well-being and also your ability to resolve problems. And I can tell you so many great stories where I was undergoing hardship. For instance, in New York City, when there was a citywide hiring. So my plan in New York City was to be a real estate agent and a teacher. I was going to sell real estate to finance being a teacher in New York City. And I kind of did that in like the worst time in history. So I graduated in the winter of 2007. And in 2008, when I finally had my real estate license, the market tanked and the commissions were cut in half. And there was all this calamity. But I stuck it through. And then as soon as I got my license to teach, they had a citywide hiring freeze because the real estate was financing the real estate was financing the schools. So I really, really had some bad luck. But instead of having that victimized mentality, It really taught me, by being resourceful, how to hustle, how to be resourceful, how to find opportunities. And this may be the first instance where I realized that I was the type of person who can find and take advantage of loopholes and exceptions to the rules. It probably was a clear indicator that there were opportunities in the future. So one of the things that I did here was, when there was a citywide hiring freeze, I found a loophole in the hiring freeze, that if you were a new school, you were allowed to hire new teachers, because the hiring freeze excluded all new teachers. So what did I do? Instead of whining and moaning and living in my mom's basement and getting a crappy busing job, I went through the newspapers. I found lists of all the brand new schools that were allowed to hire, made an Excel doc, sent blind carbon copies, sending my resume out to all those new schools so I could be a substitute teacher and eventually get an opening into a full-time teaching role. Not only that, after I did that, I realized I wanted to come at a different angle, so I sent proposals for after-school programs, started a state test prep program and a guitar program. Not only did I do that, but also there was one school, this is like one of the craziest things I did to be resourceful, but I was like, I'm going to apply to these schools before they even open. So I went to a gathering for schools applying to be accepted and to begin. These are future principals. And I walked in, snuck into the place, and handed out my resume to all these schools before they even opened up. So this was my way of thinking outside of the box, and instead of calling it quits and saying, poor me, finding loopholes into the system and being resourceful. If you get stopped by one failure and going the traditional path doesn't work, keep on resolving and finding ways and brainstorming and looking for alternative measures until you can get to where you go. So really having that attitude of being pragmatic here, but also not just following when the typical path and that you see that failure, look at what else you can do and how far can you take these things before you call it quits. And by having that right attitude, you're going to be able to find more solutions, and you'd be amazed by being open-minded and having the right attitude, how many amazing ideas are right here in your head. Just by using your own facilities and having the right attitude, you're going to come up and really tap into your own brilliance. Okay, now let's talk about another way that we can just, a psychological tool we could use here to look at our failures is, I really think a good model, a good metaphor for you going through failures, especially if you're in sales or an area where you got to deal with continuous rejections and trying, is really look at this like a video game. Like imagine you're playing a video game. You know, Dr. Mario, Super Mario, he falls into the cliff, and what happens? You just start the level over again. When you start the level over again as Super Mario, it's not like he's hobbling when you start the game all over again. He's the same Mario, same shape, looks exactly the same, and then this time he makes it over that jump, and then maybe he gets to some other guy, and maybe he doesn't quite make it through, but he's smarter this time around, and he's gotten a little bit further, and you've recognized some patterns, and you're ready to overcome and take this level a little further, and maybe you get knocked down again by the big boss. And then you start again. And so really having that attitude of every time you gotta start again and you fail, not really looking at this as some sort of permanent sort of destiny, like, oh, I suck, I'll never be good at this, but really thinking to yourself, okay, let's come at this at a different angle. We're gonna be smarter next time around. What can we learn from this? And really think about not really taking the pain of the failure into the next go-around. Just like how Mario doesn't hobble because in the last time he gave the level, he fell down on a cliff or got hit in the head with a turtle shell. So another thing I want you to think about here is, really, again, just being pragmatic and not being emotional in how you handle these things. And as you're going through all this and you're really striving to do this here, I want you guys to ask yourself, what is my purpose and why am I doing this? Because I think about this when I think about some of my shortcomings in my career, when I wasn't doing so hot as an auditor, or maybe when I was not really doing so great at selling real estate that I wasn't very interested in, I thought to myself, I didn't really have, sometimes you're going to find when you ask yourself, why am I doing this? You might have multiple answers in your head. Sometimes you're saying, why am I doing this? And it's going to be in the tone of, why am I doing this? Like, I suck at this job. I don't even want to be an internal auditor. I don't care about access controls. And that asking your question to yourself and being honest is a clear indicator. Maybe you're failing because you don't care enough and you're not in the right field, or you're not tapping into your unique abilities. Or sometimes, and I really think it helps here to just go on a walk. I mean, there's so many great ideas and epiphanies I've come to just by going for long walks and having conversations with myself in my own head outside. But sometimes when you ask yourself, why am I doing this and what is my purpose, you will realize that there is a deep, profound meaning behind why you're doing this. So there were times at NC State where I'd be up and sleeping in the libraries and studying and working until 2 in the morning, no social life, living like a dog, having been a career changer, watching all my friends, settle down and buy houses, and here I am living with roommates and thinking, why am I doing this? And then realizing how amazing it is to have the opportunity to live in America, to have this free library that I can take naps in when no one's looking, and eventually become an accountant and a CPA and have a profession that is so well respected and has so much versatility that you can do so many things with. I have so many reasons why I'm doing this, and that would really push myself through. So ask yourself, as we talk about being pragmatic and not letting your failures bring you down, but let's be real, we're all human, we still experience emotions, and asking yourself, why am I going through this, is going to help you either maybe shift your focus and make sure you're doing something that's worth all this, or it's going to empower you and give you that extra boost to push through these failures. Now, another thing I want you to think about here is as you go through these failures, and we talk about being, looking at this like a video game and having humor, but at the end of the day, I think we still feel some pain in our failures, which is fine, we're human beings. So when you go through those failures and maybe even the data shows that you're not as good as you think you are, and things aren't turning out the way you had planned and you're getting your heart broken, I want you guys to remember who you are. Remember all the things that you've gone through to get to where you are, all the accomplishments and the struggles, the purpose, the vision, what's driving you to this, what's unique about yourself, and really have some pride in yourself. And when you go through these failures, don't let it shrink your goal. So when I think about, instances where, maybe I was a slow starter and some of my classmates that were younger than me because I was a career changer looked down on me, and I was getting rejected by all these partners at these big firms, as we all know, came back to me. But as I was getting just knocked down over and over and over again, I would remember the resourcefulness that I had and my ability to find loopholes in the systems and all the other things that I had accomplished. And what I always say to myself and others is, don't let your failures shrink your goals. Just because this isn't working, or you're not making it at this job that maybe isn't even right for you, or this business isn't taking off right now, that shouldn't have any impact on how big you can think. You should even think bigger as you go through these struggles. So you should be thinking to your head, okay, this didn't work. Wait until I do this. That's going to be 10 times better than that. These are the ways you should always maintain that identity of someone who strives for greatness and excellence and has incredible potential, regardless of the feedback you're getting in the immediate situation that you're in right now. And so the final thing that I want you to think about here is to really have a vision that resonates with you. Because let's be real. With all these tools we have, there's so much opportunity. Life is still going to be hard. You're still going to feel like crap some days. You're still going to be hit in the head. You're still going to have even your own staff have rough days or give you negative feedback, or your clients are going to leave you. You're really going to have your heart broken, especially as an entrepreneur. And many of our clients are entrepreneurs, or even in the workforce as W-2s. It doesn't hurt as bad, but I know, even from my experience, there were some really rough days at any job I had that was serious, that I took seriously. So You really have a vision that resonates with you. Back to knowing your purpose, and back to having asking yourself, why am I doing this? Make sure that you're pursuing a path that is aligned with who you are. Where's your passion and interest? And that's going to really, if you're doing something that's important to you, and if your mission is aligned with who you are, and our mission is really to create freedom in the lives of entrepreneurs and really elevate the profession, really elevate the people around me now who I help support their families, and really build them into really elite, competent advisors and professionals. When your mission is really strong and you have a vision that is exciting to you, that's going to really help push you through all these things. And now if you don't, maybe it's time to shift your focus and find that vision, whatever it is. And for some of you, that vision may be just to be an amazing provider for your children, and maybe the 9 to 5 isn't your main passion, but you're an awesome provider, and that's why you go through the 9 to 5. Or maybe you make a lot of money so you can invest into real estate and have that wealth, that generational wealth, and retire early. Just have some sort of vision that you're working towards that really resonates deep within your soul, and that's going to push you through all those failures. Also, as we're thinking about this topic, one amazing book that I highly recommend to all of you guys is the book Obstacle is the Way. The Obstacle is the Way is probably my favorite audio book. So when I was going through some really challenging times trying to start over as an accountant, that was one of my favorite books, just to really encourage and demonstrate that Stoic philosophy of turning obstacles into opportunities. Again, thinking about how can all these adversities and problems turn you into a stronger, more resourceful person to overcome even greater challenges in the future. So I really hope you enjoyed this conversation today on dealing with failure. And always, if you do have failure and you have a really low tax bracket, let's take advantage of the tax savings. Like I say, never let a good tax bracket go to waste. So if you're losing money in your business and unprofitable, maybe you do some Roth conversions, maybe you take advantage of the $0 long-term capital gains bracket. Lots of cool tax planning opportunities if you're going through hardship and starting over. So even when you're unprofitable, there's still tax planning opportunities. So if I'm looking at the podcast views. We had we went on a little bit of a hiatus just because I was so busy, and we produced no episodes in December. We still had 180 listens. So you guys are listening. So I hope, give me some feedback. Let me know your thoughts on this one. This is one of our more unique episodes, and I want to know what you think and what are your takeaways. Feel free. I'll read and respond to any email, mark@prosperalcpa.com. And anything else you want to learn or other content you want us to cover. And as always, if you know anyone else, you or anyone else who can use our services, go to prosperalcpa.com/apply. And we are hiring aggressively and looking for wonderful talent. So if you know anyone who you think would fit into our culture and is interested in what we do, send them to prosperalcpa.com/recruiting. Have a great day. Hope you enjoyed. Got more stuff coming your way.